A police dog's fierce barks stopped a black pilot from boarding his jet at O'Hare International Airport, halting a transatlantic flight and sparking chaos among furious passengers. Security raced to uncover a suspected bomb, but what they found was a truth that stung deeper, prejudice laid bare. Before we dive into this heart-wrenching tale, tell us where you're reading from, and if stories of injustice and courage grip your soul. Subscribe and hit the bell to never miss a narrative that challenges the heart. Have you ever seen instinct clash with bias? Share your thoughts below. The fluorescent lights of O'Hare International Airport's Terminal 3 cast a sterile glow, battling the gloom of January 24th, 2025. Snow piled against the windows, snarling runways and tempers alike. Passengers crowded departure boards, their faces etched with frustration as delays mounted. Flight crews darted through, their urgency palpable in the frigid air. The chaos, a pressure cooker of human impatience, set the stage for a drama no one saw coming, least of all Captain Marcus Thompson. 5 days prior, a chilling hoax alert had swept through TSA's secure channels, claiming a black man in a pilot's uniform planned to smuggle explosives onto an international flight. Sensationalized by local news, headlines screaming, "O'Hare terror scare," the report painted a vivid, baseless portrait of a suspicious individual. Debunked by the FBI as a malicious prank, it left a residue of fear. Security staff, including Officer Michael Reeves, absorbed its echoes, their vigilance now tinged with suspicion. The lie had taken root, a poison that would soon ensnare an innocent man. Reeves, 34, adjusted his winter patrol jacket, his breath visible in the terminal's chill. Beside him, Titan, a 3-year-old German shepherd, moved with disciplined grace, his black eyes scanning the throng. Dubbed the Professor for his uncanny precision, Titan was no ordinary canine. His alerts had uncovered a concealed handgun and a smuggler with surgically implanted narcotics, earning him and Reeves a sterling reputation. Their bond, forged in Texas training fields, was a silent symphony of trust. Yet the hoax alert gnawed at Reeves, a splinter of doubt sharpening his gaze as he patted Titan's flank. "Another day in paradise," Reeves muttered, his half-smile fading as Titan's ears twitched. The terminal's din, announcements, footsteps, complaints, felt like a heartbeat, quickening with each delayed flight. Reeves, a former cybercrime investigator, had joined the K-9 unit to conquer a childhood fear of dogs, a scar from a Rottweiler's bite at 8. Titan, with his deliberate pauses during scent work, had become his redemption, a partner who saw what others missed. But today the hoax's shadow loomed, whispering, "What if it's real this time?" As they approached the international terminal, Reeves felt the weight of the crowd, the stakes of their patrol. Titan's steady gait grounded him, but the alert's aftertaste lingered, a lens through which he'd soon see Captain Thompson, not as a pilot, but as a threat. The stage was set, the tension coiled, ready to unravel in a clash of instinct and injustice. In the frenetic heart of O'Hare's Terminal 3, where snow-choked runways fueled a restless din, Officer Michael Reeves and Titan patrolled with practiced ease. The fluorescent glare burned overhead, mirroring the tension of January 24th, 2025, as passengers jostled and departure boards flickered with delays. The hoax alert from 5 days prior, a debunked claim of a black pilot plotting an attack, clung to Reeves like a shadow, its malicious echo sharpening his senses. Titan, the 3-year-old German shepherd, whose precision had earned him the nickname the Professor, scanned the crowd, his black eyes cutting through the chaos. Their bond, a silent pact forged through triumphs, felt unbreakable. Yet the terminal's pulse, quickened by delays and fear, hinted at a storm brewing. As they neared the luxury airline lounges, Titan's demeanor shifted, his muscles coiled, ears pinned back, and his gaze locked onto a figure striding through crew security. Captain Marcus Thompson, 42, moved with the quiet confidence of a man who'd earned his place. His American Airlines uniform was pristine, 4 gold stripes on his epaulets catching the light. A black pilot with close-cropped hair and a warm, steady presence. Thompson slung his flight bag over one shoulder, heading for Flight 862 to London Heathrow. With 15 years and 10,000 flight hours, he was a trailblazer in an industry where black pilots were a rarity, less than 3% of the workforce. He nodded to a gate agent, his smile brief but genuine, unaware of the scrutiny about to descend. Titan's low growl erupted into a barrage of barks, sharp and relentless. The shepherd lunged, planting himself in Thompson's path, hackles raised, his voice echoing off the terminal's walls. Travelers froze, their murmurs swelling into a chorus of confusion. Reeves' heart thudded, the hoax alert flashing in his mind. Black male, pilot's uniform, explosives. "Titan, heel!" he commanded, but the dog's focus was absolute, barks ricocheting like gunfire. Passengers pulled out phones, recording the spectacle, their whispers turning to complaints about delays. Thompson stopped short, his expression shifting from surprise to guarded frustration. "Officer, control your dog," he said, his voice calm but edged with steel, a tone honed by years of navigating subtle slights. "I'm due to fly in 40 minutes. 243 passengers are counting on me for London." "I'm sorry, Captain," Reeves replied, his tone clipped, almost mechanical. "Titan doesn't react like this without reason." The words were a reflex, rooted in Titan's flawless record, unmasking a smuggler, spotting a hidden gun. But doubt flickered, the hoax's poison whispering. What if it's him? Reeves tightened his grip on the leash, his pulse racing. Thompson's jaw clenched, his eyes locking onto Reeves with piercing clarity. 15 years with American Airlines. No incidents. Your dog's wrong. His voice carried the weight of a man who'd faced this before. Unwarranted suspicion, assumptions tied to his skin, not his stripes. This isn't about your dog, is it? It's about me. The accusation stung, but Reeves pushed it aside, clinging to Titan's alert. The terminal's chaos amplified, announcements blared, travelers gawked, phones captured every move. Security Supervisor Diane Coleman, a seasoned TSA veteran with gray-streaked hair, pushed through the crowd, her radio crackling with updates on Flight 862's status. "Officer Reeves, what's happening?" she asked, her eyes flicking from Titan, still barking, to Thompson, whose posture radiated controlled indignation. "Titan's alerting on the captain," Reeves said, his voice steady but his mind churning. "I've never seen him this fixated on airline personnel." Titan's past successes bolstered his resolve, but Thompson's words echoed. "It's about me." The hoax alert's details, black man, pilot, threat, clawed at his thoughts, unbidden, warping his perception. Coleman glanced at the departure board. Flight 862 was already delayed by snow. Further holdups would cascade across schedules. "We can't stall a flight because your dog's having a moment," she said, her pragmatism clashing with the growing spectacle. Passengers nearby muttered, their frustration palpable, oblivious to the deeper injustice unfolding. Reeves stood firm, his trust in Titan a lifeline. "I'm requesting a secondary screening for Captain Thompson. Titan's never been wrong." The mantra steadied him, but doubt gnawed. Was it Titan's instincts or the hoax's shadow driving this? Thompson's face hardened, his weariness giving way to defiance. "This is targeted," Thompson said, his voice low, cutting through the din. "You're acting on that fake alert from last week, the one they proved was a lie. I've dealt with this my whole career, airports, hotels, even the cockpit. But stopping my flight? This is too far." His hand gestured to his uniform, a symbol of his hard-won place, now tainted by suspicion. Reeves flinched, the truth in Thompson's words piercing his certainty. The hoax had been debunked, a cruel fabrication, but its residue shaped how he'd seen Thompson from the moment Titan barked. Coleman, caught between protocol and the escalating scene, made her call. "Captain, please cooperate for a random screening. We'll expedite to get you on your flight." "Random?" Thompson's laugh was sharp, humorless, a blade of justified anger. "This is profiling, plain and simple. You saw a black pilot and jumped." His voice rose, drawing more eyes, phones, and whispers. "I'm not your suspect." The weight of his words hung heavy, a challenge Reeves couldn't answer. Coleman nodded to Reeves, her face tight. "Take him to the screening room. Resolve this quickly." Thompson's shoulders stiffened, but he complied, his silence louder than any protest. As they moved through the crowd, passengers grumbled, unaware of the wound being inflicted. Reeves glanced at Titan, his partner's dark eyes unreadable. "Good boy," he whispered, but the words tasted like ash. Had he misread Titan or betrayed his own principles? The private screening room in O'Hare's Terminal 3 was a stark cage of white walls and cold metal, its fluorescent lights casting a clinical glare. On January 24th, 2025, the din of the snow-choked terminal faded as the door shut, trapping Officer Michael Reeves, his German Shepherd Titan, Captain Marcus Thompson, and TSA Officer Marcus Wong in a crucible of suspicion. The hoax alert from 5 days prior, a debunked claim of a black pilot smuggling explosives, hung heavy, its poison fueling the tension. Reeves, clutching Titan's leash, felt the weight of his decision to escalate, driven by the dog's relentless barking and a nagging fear seated by the lie. Thompson, his American Airlines uniform a symbol of his 15-year career, stood with arms crossed, his silence louder than the chaos outside. Titan sat by the door, his black eyes locked on Thompson, ears twitching with unyielding focus. The Shepherd's earlier outburst in the terminal, blocking Thompson's path to Flight 862, had ignited a public spectacle, with passengers' phones capturing every moment. Now, in this sterile room, the stakes felt suffocating. Reeves, 34, clung to Titan's flawless record, unmasking a smuggler, spotting a hidden gun, as proof of his partner's instincts. But Thompson's words from the terminal echoed, "This isn't about your dog, it's about me." The hoax alert's shadow, black male, pilot's uniform, threat, twisted Reeves's perception, making doubt a splinter in his resolve. Wong, a meticulous TSA officer in his late 20s, began with Thompson's credentials. "License and ID clear," he said, tapping his tablet. "Captain Marcus Thompson, 15 years with American Airlines, no flags in the database." His tone was neutral, professional, but his eyes flicked to Reeves, sensing the tension. Wong unzipped Thompson's flight bag, revealing standard items: a flight manual, navigation charts, reading glasses, an energy bar, a small toiletry kit. Each item landed on the metal table with a soft thud. Unremarkable. Ordinary. "Bag's clean," Wong said, glancing at Coleman, who joined them, her radio crackling with updates. Thompson broke his silence, his voice measured but taut. "Maybe your dog smelled my protein shake. Spilled some on my sleeve this morning. Chocolate hazelnut. Strong stuff." He gestured to his jacket, draped over the table, its gold stripes gleaming. The explanation was plausible. K9s could alert to potent odors, but his eyes burned with defiance, daring Reeves to admit the real reason for this scrutiny. Reeves nodded, wanting to believe it, but the hoax's echo held him captive. "We need to be thorough," he said, his voice quieter, almost apologetic. Titan's alertness, unwavering, bolstered his resolve, but Thompson's accusation, "You're acting on that fake alert," gnawed at him. Coleman, her gray-streaked hair catching the light, checked her watch. Flight 862's delay was mounting, and passenger complaints were flooding the operations center. "Backup pilots on standby," she reported, her pragmatism clashing with the room's rising tension. Wong continued, his hands steady. "Remove your jacket, please." Thompson unbuttoned it with deliberate care, each motion a quiet act of defiance. He placed it on the table, the fabric heavy with the weight of his career. Wong checked the pockets. Empty. Titan's ears twitched, his gaze never leaving Thompson, a silent pressure that tightened Reeves's chest. "Jacket's clear," Wong said, but Reeves, haunted by Titan's persistence, pressed further. "Sir, could you empty your pants pockets?" The request felt routine, but it carried the weight of Reeves's doubt, his need to silence the hoax's whisper. Thompson's expression flickered, not fear, but a weary resignation that cut deeper than anger. He placed his wallet, phone, and keys on the table, each item a testament to his normalcy. Wong examined them: a standard iPhone, a leather wallet with credit cards and a photo of a young girl, Thompson's daughter, Reeves guessed, and a set of house keys. Nothing suspicious. Thompson's voice rose, sharp and raw. "This is outrageous. You're not following protocol. You're following prejudice. That fake alert has you seeing a terrorist instead of a pilot. He pointed to his chest, his hand steady. I'm a father, a veteran, a captain. I've flown 10,000 hours, broken barriers in a field where people like me are barely seen. But all you see is my skin. His words cracked the room's silence, exposing a wound that ran deeper than this moment. Reeves flinched, the truth piercing his certainty. Thompson's pain was palpable, a mirror to injustices Reeves hadn't faced. Yet the hoax's shadow urged him on, a lie he couldn't shake. I'd like a full-body scan and an ion detector swab, he said, his voice faltering, the words tasting like betrayal. Coleman hesitated, her face etched with unease. TSA rules required reasonable suspicion, but Titan's alert and the hoax's lingering fear tipped the scales. Proceed, she said, her voice betraying her discomfort. Wong prepared the scanner, its hum a low drone in the sterile room. Thompson stood, arms outstretched, his dignity a quiet rebellion against the indignity. The scan revealed nothing. No metal, no contraband. The ion swab followed, its results negative. Wong's shoulders eased. All clear, he said, looking to Coleman. I think we can release Captain Thompson. But Titan's behavior shifted, snapping Reeves' attention. The shepherd rose, sniffing the air, then pawed at Thompson's jacket on the table, his growl low and insistent. Reeves knelt beside him, heart pounding. What is it, boy? He ran his fingers along the left lapel, recalling a case where Titan found contraband sewn into a seam. The stitching felt tight, almost too perfect. We need portable imaging, he said, his voice firm but his confidence fraying. Thompson's eyes flashed, his voice trembling with justified anger. You're tearing apart my uniform? That's custom-tailored. $800. This isn't security, it's harassment. His hands clenched, not in guilt, but in the pain of being reduced to a suspect in the uniform he'd earned. Coleman promised reimbursement if nothing was found, but her words felt hollow against Thompson's outrage. A technician arrived with a portable X-ray, its screen flickering to life. The scanner passed over the jacket, revealing nothing. No microchip, no device, no contraband. The lapel was clean, its stitching pristine. Reeves stared at the empty screen, a knot tightening in his chest. Titan, now sitting calmly, looked up, his dark eyes unreadable. Had the dog been wrong? Or had Reeves, primed by the hoax, projected his fears onto Titan's alert? Dogs could sense handlers' tension, their subtle cues. Had his own bias, unconscious, insidious, driven this farce? Wong reviewed the scan data. All clear. No traces of explosives, narcotics, or contraband. His voice was steady, but his glance at Reeves carried a question. Why did you push this far? Coleman exhaled, her voice soft but firm. Captain Thompson, you're free to go. We apologize for the inconvenience. The word inconvenience landed like an insult, and Thompson's silence was a rebuke. He gathered his belongings, his movements slow, deliberate, each item a reclaiming of his dignity. Inconvenience? His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of years of indignities. This was racial profiling. You let a fake alert, and your biases turned me into a criminal. He pointed to his skin, his hand unwavering. I'm a pilot, not a threat. But you'll never see that, will you? The words hung heavy, unanswerable. Reeves wanted to speak, to explain, but his throat tightened. Thompson's pain was a wound he'd helped inflict, a truth he couldn't dodge. As Thompson left, his silhouette framed by the terminal's chaos, Reeves knelt beside Titan, stroking his fur. What happened, boy? He whispered, the question for himself. The hoax had been a lie, but its impact was real, and Reeves had been its unwitting tool. The door of the private screening room swung open, releasing Captain Marcus Thompson back into the frenetic pulse of O'Hare's Terminal 3. On January 24, 2025, the fluorescent light stung his eyes, but he held his head high, his American Airlines uniform pristine despite the ordeal. The snow outside continued to choke the runways, mirroring the weight in his chest. Officer Michael Reeves, still kneeling beside Titan, watched Thompson's silhouette vanish into the crowd, the pilot's parting words echoing like a verdict. This was racial profiling. You let a fake alert and your biases turned me into a criminal. The hoax alert from 5 days prior, a debunked lie about a black pilot smuggling explosives, had fueled this injustice, and Reeves felt its poison now, a bitter truth searing his conscience. Thompson moved with deliberate steps, his flight bag slung over one shoulder, each stride a reclaiming of his dignity. Passengers, oblivious to the wound he carried, grumbled about delays, their phones still buzzing with videos of Titan's outburst. In the screening room, Reeves had seen the pain in Thompson's eyes, the raw edge of a man who'd faced suspicion, not for his actions, but for his skin. "What happened, boy?" Reeves whispered to Titan, his voice cracking. The German shepherd tilted his head, loyal but uncomprehending, his dark eyes offering no answers. Reeves' trust in Titan, his partner, his anchor, had been absolute, built on triumphs like unmasking a smuggler or spotting a hidden gun. But today, Titan's alert had been wrong, and Reeves knew why. The hoax had warped his perception, his own tension feeding Titan's reaction, a subtle cue that turned a routine patrol into a travesty. Supervisor Diane Coleman, her face etched with fatigue, broke the silence. "Flight 862's boarding now," she said, her radio crackling. "Thompson's cleared to fly." Her voice carried a hint of relief, but her eyes lingered on Reeves, a question unspoken. How did we let this happen? She turned to TSA Officer Marcus Wong, who was packing up the scanner. "Log the incident. False positive, K9 alert. We'll review protocol later." Wong nodded, his movements mechanical, but his glance at Reeves held a flicker of sympathy. The room felt smaller, the air heavy with the aftermath of a mistake that couldn't be undone. Thompson reached the gate for Flight 862, the Boeing 777 waiting on the snowy tarmac. The gate agent, a young woman with a nervous smile, handed him the manifest. "Sorry about the delay, Captain," she said, unaware of the deeper wound. Thompson nodded, his expression unreadable. "Let's get these people to London," he said, his voice steady, professional. Inside, the sting of humiliation burned, a scar no apology could erase. He thought of his daughter, Maya, her photo tucked in his flight bag, her smile a beacon through years of microaggressions and barriers. This wasn't just about him. It was about her, about every black pilot who'd follow, about a system that saw threat before talent. In the cockpit, Thompson settled into the captain's seat, his hands moving through pre-flight checks with the precision of 10,000 hours. The co-pilot, a younger white man named Jenkins, glanced at him. "Rough morning, huh?" he said, his tone light, clueless. Thompson's jaw tightened, but he forced a nod. "Yeah, let's fly." The engines roared to life, and Flight 862 taxied through the snow, departing an hour late. Passengers, grumbling about schedules, had no inkling of the injustice that had unfolded, the cost of a pilot's dignity to get them airborne. 2 days later, the administrative conference room at O'Hare buzzed with tension, its long table crowded with security personnel. Director Margaret Chen, a no-nonsense leader with decades in aviation security, stood at the podium, her presence commanding silence. Reeves sat in the front row, Titan at his side, the shepherd's harness gleaming under the lights. The dog's calm demeanor was a stark contrast to Reeves' churning guilt, a knot that had tightened since Thompson's release. "The investigation into Captain Marcus Thompson's screening is complete," Chen began, her voice steady but grave. "No threat was found. Titan's alert was a false positive, likely influenced by handler bias, amplified by the recent hoax alert about a black pilot." Her words landed like stones, and Reeves felt eyes on him, some sympathetic, others accusing. He'd trusted Titan, his partner through triumphs, but the hoax, a malicious lie spread through TSA channels and media, had turned that trust into a weapon. Chen's gaze swept the room, unflinching. "Thompson has filed a formal complaint with TSA, American Airlines, and the Department of Homeland Security, citing racial profiling. This incident exposes flaws in our protocols. False reports, media sensationalism, and unexamined biases turned a routine check into discrimination." Reeves's throat tightened, Thompson's voice replaying, "All you see is my skin." He joined the K9 unit to protect, to bridge a childhood fear of dogs, a Rottweiler's bite at 8, with a purpose larger than himself. Titan, with his analytical pauses, had been his redemption, a partner who saw what humans missed. But humans shaped dogs, and Reeves had failed. The hoax had exploited his unexamined biases, a lens he hadn't known he wore until it shattered Thompson's dignity. Chen continued, her tone softening but resolute. Officer Reeves, you and Titan are mandated to complete training on implicit bias and canine handling, effective immediately. This isn't punishment, it's accountability. Reeves nodded, his hand resting on Titan's head, the shepherd's warmth a small comfort. This isn't just about one officer or one dog, Chen said. It's about a system that let a lie amplify prejudice. Captain Thompson deserved better. So do the passengers who trust us. She stepped back, signaling the meeting's end, but her words lingered, a call to change. The room emptied, but Reeves stayed, Titan's head against his knee. He thought of his journey, growing up in South Chicago, terrified of dogs until a K9 unit's precision inspired him at 23. He'd defied colleagues' skepticism, leaving cybercrime for the K9 program, driven by the handler-dog bond. Titan, a washed-out shepherd with a knack for overthinking, had become his mirror, his strength. But mirrors could distort, and Reeves had seen Thompson through a warped lens, shaped by a lie he'd let take root. Outside, snow fell in thick flakes, blanketing the tarmac. Reeves knelt beside Titan, the cold seeping through his uniform. "We messed up, boy," he whispered, his voice breaking. Titan's dark eyes met his, loyal, unjudging, a reminder that dogs didn't carry guilt. Humans did. The terminal hummed beyond, travelers unaware of the storm they'd weathered. Reeves thought of Thompson, piloting through the skies, carrying a wound Reeves had helped inflict. He'd failed him, failed himself, but failure could be a teacher. Reeves stood, tightening Titan's leash. The next patrol loomed, but the real work was deeper, unlearning the biases he hadn't seen, rebuilding trust, ensuring no one else bore the weight of his mistakes. He glanced at a black family passing through the terminal, their laughter bright against the chaos. A silent vow formed. Never again. The snow fell, relentless, but Reeves felt a spark of resolve, a step toward redemption, however long the road. What does it mean when a dog's bark exposes not a threat, but a system's flaws? Captain Marcus Thompson's ordeal at O'Hare on January 24, 2025, stirred hearts and sparked questions. Have you faced profiling fueled by false reports or media hype? Share your story in the comments. Your voice matters. How can airports dismantle biases in security to protect without prejudice? Should K9 units be trusted when handlers' biases sway their alerts, as with Officer Reeves and Titan? Tell us how training can evolve to prevent such injustices. What stories of resilience against discrimination inspire you? Perhaps a moment when someone, like Thompson, stood tall. Drop your thoughts below. We read everyone and may feature your tale in a future story. Subscribe and hit the bell for more narratives that challenge and uplift. Share this with friends who value justice and the unsung heroes who fight for it. Together, let's raise awareness of the biases that linger in places like O'Hare's Terminal 3 and honor those who soar above them. Join us next Tuesday and Friday for more tales of courage and truth. 2 days after the storm of January 24th, high above the Atlantic, Captain Marcus Thompson guided a Boeing 777 through a starlit sky. The cockpit's hum soothed the ache of his O'Hare ordeal, where a hoax-fueled profiling had scarred his dignity. Thompson adjusted the autopilot, his hands steady, his eyes on the horizon. Beside the flight manual, a photo of his daughter, Maya, smiled, a reminder of why he endured. The screening had been a public wound, but his complaint, lodged with TSA and American Airlines, was a beacon for change. For Maya, for every black pilot navigating a field that often questioned their place, he flew with quiet defiance. The skies were his sanctuary, where skill silenced suspicion, and each mile was a testament to resilience. Back in the snowy chaos of O'Hare's Terminal 3, Officer Michael Reeves and Titan resumed their patrol, the weight of the conference room's verdict lingering. The mandate, training for implicit bias, stung, but Thompson's pain cut deeper. Reeves moved with a quieter step, Titan's leash taut. He watched a black family weave through the crowd, their joy piercing his guilt. The hoax had twisted his trust in Titan, turning a loyal dog's alert into a mistake. Kneeling, Reeves whispered, "We'll do better, boy." Titan's eyes, loyal and clear, held no blame. The terminal pulsed, travelers blind to the lesson etched in Reeves's heart. He vowed silently, never again. With Titan at his side, he'd walk the long road to redemption, ensuring no one else bore the cost of his blindness. The story Shadows of Suspicion delivers profound lessons about confronting bias, embracing accountability, and fostering resilience against injustice. For an older audience who have witnessed decades of societal change, the narrative underscores the enduring need to challenge prejudice, even when it hides in trusted systems like security protocols. Captain Marcus Thompson's ordeal reveals how stereotypes, amplified by false narratives like the hoax alert, can wound dignity, urging us to question assumptions and advocate for fairness. Officer Michael Reeves's journey teaches that acknowledging personal flaws, however painful, is a step toward growth, a lesson vital for lifelong learning. The story also highlights resilience. Thompson's determination to fly and fight for change inspires us to persevere through adversity. In daily life, we can apply these lessons by examining our own biases, listening to marginalized voices, and supporting equitable systems. For older generations, sharing wisdom to bridge divides is powerful. Reflect on a time you faced or witnessed bias. How did you respond? Share your story with family or community to spark dialogue. Let's commit to building a world where dignity triumphs over suspicion, starting today.